Ali, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Um, I think you mentioned this briefly in our interview, and this is kind of a similar point to what Michael pointed out. Is I've noticed for myself that um, the emotional component or the psychological component, I don't feel like it's completely disconnected from the ability to recognize and analyze chart patterns. So,
Correct.
for example, like there are certain times I noticed in myself 2 years ago where a certain type of setup would cause me, I'd be very panicky. Like I'd want to exit on every pullback. I'd feel nervous about it. But as I started to become more comfortable with it, the same setup, I feel more comfortable sitting through a pullback because I've seen the pullback resolve to the upside so many times.
Yeah.
So once you have a really deep sense of what the probability actually is, the psychological part kind of fixes itself. So I'm wondering, is there a separate mutually exclusive part that's psychological that needs to be fixed on its own, or is it just actually getting a very deep understanding of what's likely? And so, like, what I think me and Michael struggle with this because I've talked to him in chat as well. Is that you're looking for a high of day test, and the first pullback scares you out. But once you see that first pullback scare you out multiple times and it goes in your favor, then eventually you realize this first pullback is just the first pullback, nothing to be afraid of. So is it about knowing more and experiencing more and then the psychological fix itself? Or is the psychological something that has to be worked on its own?
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, before I answer that, I really think that all of you have to take this test, Myers-Briggs personality type test. Okay. The reason for that is that if you study the psychological research that's done on trading, you will find that these are the personality types according to Myers-Briggs classification. Okay, INTJ, INTP, ENTJ, ENTP, so on and so forth. There are three factors here, N, T, and J, and all of the great traders have these three factors. So each one of them relate to one aspect of the person's personality. Now, if you look at the types down here, let me make this a little bit bigger. So for the entertainer personality type, ESFP, like forget the E because E is either extrovert or introvert, but SFP. Well, there is no NTJ in it. So what happens if this guy tries to become a trader? Well, he's going to have a very hard time. So for every factor that is not there, N, T, or J, the amount of work that you have to do on your psychology goes up about 30–40%.
Ali, I have actually taken this Myers-Briggs test and I got the INTJ.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm from INTJ.
I am an INTJ too with a very deep I. My I introvert aspect of my personality is like 70%. So these guys will have, according to research, but everybody is still different. There are other sides of person's personality that comes into play. But like as a ballpark, as an overall view, NTJs have the least amount of psychological resistiveness to trading. And for every factor that the person is not having, they have to put in more work. It's still possible. It's not like I don't have NTJ, none of them, I never can trade. It's not like that. It just helps you understand yourself a little bit better. So take this test, put it in the chat here, and see how you score. So that's one part of the answer. The next part is, as you just said yourself, so I'm going to get rid of this. So here's a chart. This was this yesterday? I think so. Yeah,
that was yesterday.
Yeah, so every bar here has two meanings or three meanings: a reason to buy, a reason to sell, a reason to do nothing. But the meaning that you attach to it, first of all, you attach the meaning to it, right? The bar itself doesn't have any meaning. From a psychological point of view, you attach meanings to these things. Let me give you something else if you are into it. Let's just quickly search for it. But yeah, Course in Miracles, ACIM, accept that. You should be able to download this. So workbook for students, take this one. Yeah, so it's okay, so they changed it. It used to be a PDF download. They might still have it, but they have changed it. I haven't been here for a very long time. So this is, by the way, a Christian religious text. Forget about the religion part of it. It's a very powerful psychological training tool. And I suggest that you do it. You practice using it. It's going to take you a year to go through it. It's 365 exercises, as you see here. 365 exercises. There's a lesson for every day. And it's going to help you to trade better. I did this twice years ago. So let's take a look at the first one. Okay, this is lesson number 1. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, on this chart means anything. Nothing on this chart means anything. You assign meanings to it yourself. So assign the meanings to the chart that works for you. If you are into it, do this. This is the meditation exercise once or twice or 3 times a day. And this is the topic for that meditation. Nothing I see means anything. Look at the next one, lesson 2. I've given everything I see on this chart all the meaning that it has for me. Right? So you give those bars meanings. The bars don't have any meanings. You give them meanings. So give them the meanings that result in profits for you. Lesson 3, I do not understand anything I see on this chart, on this street, in this room. If you think about it, you really don't understand anything about this chart because we don't know who is trading, what's happening, all the technology behind it. It's all abstract. But it will free you up from worrying too much about things. These thoughts do not mean anything. They're like the things I see in this room, on this chart, in this window. The thoughts that are killing everybody, they're just thoughts. They're like puffs of clouds in the sky. They come and go, right? But they stir up your emotions. Those thoughts bring up your emotions. But if you really get to the point that these thoughts do not mean anything, you can just stand a step back, look at them and say, oh, that's just a thought. Okay, acknowledge the thought, let it go, and don't get emotional. That's why I think this course is really important for traders because it allows them to think separate from the markets and detach themselves from that chart. If you really get to the bottom of the meanings of these lessons, you're probably going to feel a lot lighter, so much more free, not being bogged down by your emotions. So that's a practice tool, and I recommend it. But at the same time, you have to be at the level to be able to appreciate this because some people cannot appreciate it. It needs a certain level of advancement in spirituality to start appreciating it.